Welcome to The State of Us.
Beyond mainstream cable news and party lines, with a millennial and a boomer, The State of Us pushes past the noise and uncovers all the issues that matter.
Here's your host, Justin T. Weller.
With more than 2 million subscribers and 1 billion views per year, Prager University has become a disruption platform. Notable figures present videos in an academic format to promote the positions of the right. Prager University targets Gen Z, or Zoomers as some have called them, who are seeking an alternative voice. Now, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say, as the New York Times has dubbed Prager University the Fox News for Gen Z. I don't think that's much of a stretch, but we're going to get into it. And of course, you can make that determination for yourself. Why do we care, though? Well, there are about 84 million, almost 85 million members of Gen Z, and they make up roughly a quarter of the American population as of 2020. So when you think about that, that's a huge segment of our population, and how they get their news, how they're informed about issues, will inevitably affect the decisions they make, not only in regards to voting, but also just in life in general. So I think it's pretty clear why you need to be concerned about this, even if you're not a member of Gen Z. But of course, we couldn't begin a conversation on the generations, news, and the American voting population without
TrueChat senior historian and an educator of more than 30 years. Here is your friendly redneck liberal, Lance Jackson.
So just to put the numbers in perspective, Gen Z is the third largest group in the United States, right? Behind millennials and Gen X in terms of total numbers.
Right.
But they are 25% of the population as of 2020.
Correct.
Correct?
Yep.
And so when we're talking about, because I get all these things mixed up, Gen Z, people born since 1996, 95, 96?
96.
Okay. All right. So we're talking about people the age of 24 and under.
Roughly.
I mean, as far as the generation.
Yep.
Okay.
As
far as Gen Z.
Right. It varies a little bit based on who you ask, which is always one of the fun things with generations. But generally speaking, it's safe to say anybody born after the turn of the millennium.
Okay.
Because the way I tell people to think about it is, if you're a millennial, you have to have been old enough to remember the turn of the millennium.
Uh-huh.
You know, you might have been really young, but you can remember being there when it happened. You can remember the change, hence the name. So in terms of age groups, Gen Z is the youngest, followed by millennials, followed by Gen X, followed by baby boomers. So
we're kind of looking at people that are in junior high towards entering college, or maybe just finishing college at the extreme age.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So that tells us who we're looking at, and boy, do they have devices in their hands. So if you want to get to them, what better way, right, than to produce videos, because that's what they do. They don't watch television, as going back in the classroom, talking to them, they do not watch television. They stream videos from the internet. So this is, if you want to reach this generation, sounds like this is the way to go about it. So very interesting. Let's go ahead.
So just to be clear, we'll start right out and say Prager University is not an academic institution. Their name is just Prager University. So think of like Trump University or any other business that uses university, even though it's not an actual university where you're going to get a degree. The idea actually started, Lance, for a physical university. And when they got into the cost and the number of students they could reach, they changed their tactic and said, we can put out really smart, really targeted videos, right? And we can make them very academic, and we can make them engaging, and we can reach, 50,000 people with a single video, as opposed to doing a graduating class over 4 years of 1,000 kids. And they looked at it and said, well, obviously it's cheaper and we can reach more people going the video route. So Prager,
our goal is to get out a message, and it's cheaper and easier to get out the message by making 5-minute videos than it is to have an actual school.
That's right. From the New York Times article, which if you'd like to read is linked at thestateofus.org, it reads, Prager leaders say many of their young fans come from liberal homes, and the key for their mission is to reach these people and rescue them from what they describe as liberal indoctrination. They give the reasons why it's good to be proud of the country and proud of where you're from and who you are. They're talking about, quote, they're talking about things I was never taught, end quote, says a University of California student who has become an avid consumer of Prager University content. The company is currently suing Google, which owns YouTube, arguing that the platform is suppressing its content by marking some of its videos as restricted, and in doing so, lumping videos about the 10 Commandments in with violent or offensive content. In Prager University's corner is Zach Voorhees, a former YouTube employee who turned whistleblower, who says that liberal employees at YouTube had the ability to censor conservative content creators. And this speaks, Lance, I think, to the big
exactly
thing.
Why Prager University is a thing among young people. The left is doing exactly what they need to do to make more young people go to Prager University.
Right.
And we can explain that, but go ahead. To me, as you're reading that, I'm thinking, if you guys couldn't be promoting it more by putting it in the restricted category.
Right.
That's exactly what's going to turn young people on to want to see it. The more you tell them no, the more they want whatever it is that you're telling them no about.
Sure. Well, it's just like, right, if a song is labeled explicit, it's like you're asking for it to be a popular song.
That's the first one they're going to listen to.
Right.
That's because my parents don't want me to listen to this, or it's explicit. That I'm going to listen to this because that's what you do at that age, right? I mean, I did.
Right.
I'm an old guy, but when I was that age, that was exactly what you went to. You went to whatever it was that was going to make your parents or society feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of it comes too from they want to know why, right? Somebody's trying to keep them from whatever this thing is. Why am I not supposed to, why am I not allowed to have this? So I think that to me is what Prager University, Lance, is really tapping into, is, and this, we'll talk about in the second segment, but they're really tapping into a gap in the conversation that's being had. Mm-hmm. It's kind of emerged, especially in academia, which is where most of Gen Z is right now, right? They're either, like you said, they're either middle school age, maybe a little younger than that, or they're in a lot of them are in high school and some of them are in college. So most of them are in a setting right now where they're learning. That's their main focus in life, is to learn.
Well, and they're all carrying a device.
Yes.
Which means they have access to this. It's not like it was when my girls were in school and they still didn't have a cell phone.
Yep.
Now these kids are coming to middle school and they have a phone, and that is for many of them the most important thing they have that they own in their life. And so they have access to these things.
So let's talk a little bit about just how PragerU came to be. They began in 2009 as a nonprofit to promote the conservative religious values of Mr. Prager, who's a popular talk radio host and author of books on Judaism. Originally, the idea was to build an actual physical university, but as I mentioned before, they realized that we're looking at $250 million to get started, and we're not going to reach that many people. In 2019, Prager University, Lance, raised $22 million. Next year, in 2020, it estimates that it will raise $25 million, and its budget comes almost entirely from donor contributions. And they're all about give us 5 minutes. Lance and I have seen a couple of these videos, so we took time to watch these. And most videos are about 5 minutes long, give or take a few seconds, depending on what the topic is. And I guess the best way to describe them, Lance, is very neutrally presented, right?
Yes.
They want it to feel like this is just the way things are.
Well, they do a very good job of getting people who are either famous or fit the topic very well to talk about it, which makes them seem as experts. And so it's not given as an opinion piece, but it's given as fact. And they've got some, very well known and very well respected conservative columnists who have done videos for them. But they also have some very conspiracy, I would say, oriented types of people as well. But when you watch the videos, there's no differentiation. You see somebody, oh, I've heard my parents talk about that person. And then so what happens? Well, then when they get some more of the further right people that give videos, you as the viewer just pull them all together as maybe they're all well respected.
Right.
And that's not necessarily the case. But as we talked about off air, that's a good point. That's a good marketing thing for Prager University, because you get some respect with people like, Tucker Carlson or George Will, names that are familiar to a lot of Americans, even if you don't lean to the right. You've heard those names before, but then they have some other people that are, just way too almost conspiracy theorist type people.
Right. Well, and that's a big part of how their platform works is they present, and we talked a little about this, like if you go to their website, all the people that are creating videos or are featured in videos, they're all presented in the same circle headshot, right? So this is a very small but an important subconscious thing that's going on, which is, as Lance pointed out, to suggest that all these people are on equal playing, on the same level in terms of their expertise or their knowledge. So you've got these well-known people, and then we intersperse these others in here, and that makes us believe, or it makes us more likely to believe the credibility of all of it. Likewise, this is a tactic that's often deployed in their videos. Part of what Lance and I discovered as we were looking at a lot of this is that the videos will frequently say things that for the most part you can't refute, right? They're just general facts that are true. And then what they do in between those statements of truth is they insert and they take the leaps to these other items. If this, then that. And the problem is a lot of those if this, then that is only one of the if this, then that's. And as opposed to all the possibilities, we're basically saying there's just this one. Now, a little bit about the prevalence here before we go into the next segment, where we're going to talk some about the campus situation, how liberals got themselves here, and what are called macro values. We're going to look at all that. But the last bit I want to mention, Lance, is we talked a little bit about they have more than 1 billion views a year now, approximately. Okay, so think about that, right? 1 billion views. That's quite a lot. When you look at their average video, Lance, and I'm actually on their YouTube page right now looking at the most recent videos uploaded, most of them are hovering. My guess is that the average is in the 500,000 views range, okay, per video. I think because this is a relatively small percentage overall of just the Gen Z population, and that's assuming that all the subscribers are Gen Z. The thing that's important is when you reach 500,000 people, right, you're reaching more than that, because we're not just talking about, I just spoke to those people. Those people go along and perpetrate what's ever been sold to them to others. And
True.
If they each perpetrate it to 2 people, now instead of 500,000, we've reached 1.5 million. And, so on and so forth, the chain continues. It's this episode as a whole, and I just want to say this before we go on, isn't so much about Prager University as how a gulf has been created for things like Prager University to exist. Because somebody's always going to fill that gap if we're not filling it in academic settings. And that's what we're talking about next. Keep it here on The State of Us, and we'll be right back.
We are The State of Us. Here's your host, Justin T. Weller.
6,500 high school and college student promoters. They're known as the Prager Force, and they work for free on behalf of Prager University to go out and spread the Prager message. We've talked a little bit so far about the style of videos, right? The goal Most of these videos are an average of around 5 minutes. They do some longer form stuff, 20 minutes, 50 minutes, but for the most part, 5-minute videos, highly curated and focused to be effective at convincing Gen Z of all kinds of things. A couple of the video titles, Lance, that I will point out for you is Unborn Babies Are Children, Not a Choice. A Story Time with Will, Should a Boy Wear a Dress? Jordan Peterson Debunks Intersectionality. The Market Will Set You Free. Virginia Gun Rally, Is Gun Ownership a Right? Is the National Anthem Racist? So on and so forth. So all kinds of things that I think as titles, right, are going to pique a lot of people's interest.
Very much so.
Especially since a lot of those topics are no-no in academia right now. And that's what we want to look at next, I think, because this, to me, Lance, is kind of the crux of the whole situation here. And that's the campus fight. The article talks a lot about, and you probably remember this from reading it, these different individuals who felt a little bit ostracized, maybe, who didn't have a lot of friends and who typically came from very liberal households. And so, that rebellious nature, right, Lance?
Well, here's the one of the main ones they talk about in the article is a young man, by the last name of Witt. And he talks about how he went to college. And he said, I was raised in a relatively liberal home, but I was leaning conservative. And, he was talking about what you just talked about, the culture war on campus. And so he was taking a class, and for extra credit, the professor said, I want you to attend a political protest. So, the young man said that he would like to go listen to a nearby speech hosted by a right-wing, star. And the TA, the teaching assistant, said, nope, that's not going to count. Now, wait a minute. You said, I mean, right, you're in academia. You said to your class of political science people that I want you to go to a political protest. And that's all you said. Okay. So therefore, any political protest should be fair game. I mean, this is America, right? Freedom of speech, then a young man comes up and says, 18, 19 years old, and says, I'm going to go to this person. And because you personally don't agree, as the professor, you personally don't agree with this person's viewpoint, you tell the young student, well, I'm sorry, that one doesn't count. You have to go to something that only I believe in. How much more can you force young people than to go to that and see that and force them out of your class and listening to you as the expert or the leader of the talk on your subject, in this case, political science. I mean, I read that and I'm like, oh my gosh, and you call yourself an educator?
Right. Well, and the problem, I think that it's a little short-sighted thinking here. Rather than what you could have done, which is you let them go to that, right? And then because you let them go and you didn't act like it was any big deal, they're going to that. Now maybe they come back and say, well, they said this and they said that, and that didn't seem
exactly.
I was wondering about this. Now that you've said you can't go to that, now they go anyway, right? Not for the assignment, but they go because it's like, well, I didn't want me to go, so I'm going to go see what it is.
What's there that I'm not supposed to know? What's the secret?
And now I'm listening, thinking the whole time, this is stuff they don't want me to know this stuff.
And why don't you want me to know it?
Which adds validity to it. I mean, that's the craziness in all this, is not realizing that the very nature of pretending like it's a big secret and that you can't possibly go talk about these things or you can't listen to these people, that only further aggravates or it incentivizes rather these kids to go do that, because they're already looking for answers. And if you're not willing to provide them the answers, they will still find them.
Well, and if the audience is young people, then they don't yet have the depth of knowledge to understand the issue in totality. It's like if you or I were to go and listen, we would say, okay, yeah, I see. And like when we watch the videos, we can see the point they're trying to make, but we can refute some of the things they're saying with other information that we have read about or know about or have studied on our own. the younger you are, you just haven't been exposed to it yet. It's not that I'm not saying that the young people aren't intelligent enough. They just haven't been exposed to all of the different areas of a topic yet. So therefore, when they say what they do to young people, well, it makes sense because the younger person doesn't have the depth of knowledge yet to understand the counterclaim. It's just, well, these adults tell me this is the truth, and I don't like anything that adults say because I'm a young person and I'm going to form my own opinion. And so now you listen to this and it,
well, and in a lot of cases, they're not even acknowledging that the other side exists.
Which is even worse.
And when they do, they immediately dismiss it as wrong. So the creator of Prager University says, he basically explains the following. When it comes to politicians, he said, he marks a sharp divide between political life and personal life. He argues that the president's personal behavior is irrelevant to his public message. This is a new line of argument for Mr. Prager, who spent much of his career focusing on micro values, or in other words, the little things, the way that people behave non-professionally.
Sure, you only talk about the things that support your side.
Right.
I mean, just kind of to sum it up, and which is what we now have, as you pointed out earlier, both sides doing, is that neither side acknowledges what the other side has, and that the other side maybe makes a few good points. And so if both sides have some validity to it, then we need to find a middle ground that we can live under as a nation. But instead, you have one side saying, well, we're right because the other side is totally wrong. And then you have the other side of the argument saying the exact same thing. No, the other side of the argument is totally wrong, and we're the only ones who have the real facts. And hence the polarization.
Well, because the problem is if we can't even all start with the same facts, then we can't start at all.
Well, and that there are two sides to an argument. I'd even go even beyond that.
Right. There's at least two sides.
There's at least two different sides to the argument, and we need to listen to both sides before we come to some kind of conclusion. And that's what has happened now. You know, that's why Prager University has filled this void to bring up a second side of the argument that isn't being had on most campuses and in most places of academia.
Well, and I think the one other thing to keep in mind here, as we go into the last segment, Lance and I are going to get into what's next. You know, I mean, this isn't the first time that we've discussed the polarization, right, of the country and the ways that it's happening and how different organizations are coming into play. We've discussed censorship on college campuses at least a couple of times from my recollection. And to me, the thing that we have to look at here, right, is how do we get people to be comfortable with, or how do we convince people that conversations, right, meaningful back and forth is what we have to strive for? Because it isn't, you know, today we're talking about Prager University, but I hope people have gotten the impression that we are blaming the left as much, if not more than Prager University for what Prager University is out there doing, because they've allowed the creation of this by trying to censor and tamp down ideas. And so I think the important thing here is that neither side, neither of the extremes are innocent, because they're the reason that this is going on. They're the reason that young people, forget about that Prager University is advocating for mostly right-wing philosophy. Set that aside. They are presenting things in a way that doesn't leave any room for interpretation by young people. And that's bad. I mean, I guess, you know, we said there's other sides to arguments, but I don't think that Prager University wouldn't like it, right? They don't like it when the left presents things as if there's only one option.
Exactly.
So, and then you go to and do the same thing. And that's, I guess, what we've been talking about. So, Lance, I think it's a good time to mention before we get to the next segment, what are we trying to do here today? What's our goal here on The State of Us as part of the True Chat Network?
True Chat's mission is to educate people by providing honest, open, and respectful conversations.
I think we're working on doing that today.
I'm really trying to today. We're choosing our words carefully and trying to be fair and honest about why we think this is happening.
Well, and why it goes beyond Prager University. It's not just about them. It speaks to a larger issue as a whole, the way that we are allowing young people to be influenced by the extremes, and that's probably not how most of us feel anyway. Lance and I are going to talk about what's next, and is there anything that can be done about this? Keep it here on The State of Us, and we'll be right back.
We are The State of Us. Here's your host, Justin T. Weller.
With more than 2 million subscribers and 1 billion views per year, Prager University has become a symbol of what happens when you shut down the opportunity for people to discuss both sides or all sides of an issue. Prager University has come into play mainly to fill a gap left by academia's refusal to explore numerous sides of an issue. We talked a little bit in the last segment about kind of how liberals created this problem for themselves. They're the ones, of course, that are the least happy about the existence of something like Prager University, and they're also probably the exact reason why it exists in the first place. We've laid out how Prager University works, why it's kind of, again, a symbol. Want to stress, it isn't just Prager University that we're talking about. It's all things like this. Prager University is just an example. And now we talk about where do we go from here? I guess, Lance, as many times as we've talked about this, maybe over the last 2 or 3 years, right? Censorship on campuses, the polarization in America. And now we're talking about young people, right? And how they're being influenced. And we know these are formative years, right? They're making these decisions about how they feel about things, what they believe. And if you go down this Prager University rabbit hole, you might not come back.
Right.
Because you get so indoctrinated, right? You're so convinced that this is right. And I was actually reading an article the other day about how and why people change their mind and what it takes for somebody to change their mind. And it's not an easy thing to do, right? And this slowly kind of pulls you in. And so once you're in, now we're working really hard to ever get you out the other side. I think about somebody that you and I both know, right? Who's a big Bernie supporter. And boy, you're going to have a hard time saying anything to the contrary, right? I mean, it doesn't matter what you're coming at with him in terms of facts.
And that's what I was going to say when you finished, is that it works both ways. And that's kind of the crux, as you said, of today's show, is that it's not just about Prager University, but it's the left doing the exact same thing, that we're not having that honest, open debate on an issue where we're listening to both sides. We're either indoctrinating people, if you agree with Prager, we're indoctrinating people in academia to the left side. And so we have to have then indoctrination on the right side. And indoctrination is not free speech.
So I guess what I want to ask you, Lance, is it time to talk about, and I guess, do you see a way that the government or academia as an institution, right? High school, higher education, public, private schools, what is their role here? Because I guess I feel like you and I in the past have talked a lot about, we just have to be willing to go this way. But is it time to talk about real live, put policy in place, not necessarily, again, law, but policy in academia or law that does something to mitigate what's happening here, which is a true exclusion, depending on who you're talking to in academia, of the acknowledgement of the other side?
Well, you almost can't, because society will not allow it. Society wants their view taught. And this has always been an issue. I had my hand slapped on, a few occasions by, well, you can't talk about that in school. You can't say that. So what I did was I instituted a new class, started and created a new curriculum where the whole idea was to talk about controversial issues, so that everybody knew that when you took that class, that's what you were going to discuss.
That's what you're signing up for.
And that was my cover, is that, well, we're going to talk about these things in this class. So if you don't want that, then don't take this class. And that allowed me then the freedom to talk about both sides of these major issues in a high school setting. But being back in the classroom now for the last 4 months, nobody wants you to do that. Everybody is walking around trying not to ruffle feathers. And to this old guy, that's the whole reason why you go to school, is you're supposed to raise the questions so that young minds can look at it and come to their own conclusion. But you can't do that now. So I don't know how you get the policy or how you get the law, because parents, administrators don't want you to do those things. They don't want their children, and I'm going to use this word in air quotes, exposed to different ideas. They only want their children exposed to the ideas that they believe in, because they think it's harmful and dangerous to be exposed to alternative conclusions. Whereas I'm 180 degrees from that. And I believe that that's what we need to be doing. And the reason young people are having so many issues today in their own minds and in their friendships is because they're having these different thoughts, and they're being told that these thoughts are not right because we're not having that discussion. If we had the discussion, then young people would be more, oh, that's why I'm confused about this situation. That's why I'm hearing my parents say one thing and my friends say another, and the internet saying something else, and my pastor saying something, because, wow, there's 3 or 4 different answers out there and nobody tends to agree. Instead, they're being told there's only one way to think, and then they're open to all this information that's being given to them that there are other ways. And so now they're confused. And when they get confused, they make sometimes very harmful mistakes. So I hope I've said that, please feel free. But my concern is that many of the problems we have with today's young people is because we've closed them off to the differing ideas.
Because adults have closed them off.
Because the adults are making that decision. And I don't know how you change policy when the adults are concerned about having their children exposed to different ideas. But I think that what you said was exactly correct. Young people need to be exposed to the different sides of an issue so that they then will feel more comfortable in adolescence. Because adolescence is when you're taking all of this in and trying to figure out what you believe. So we need to do it. I don't see it being done in this climate. I don't know how you can do that. I'm open to your observations if you know how we can do it in this climate where people don't want their adolescents opened to different ideas.
Well, I guess here's what I'll say. It makes me think a little bit about the article I was telling you about from before, which is the idea about how do you persuade people, right? Really, what's an effective persuasion? If you really want your children, right, to consider your values legitimate, you have to make the opportunity for them to examine the other side real. Because if they don't, they're more likely to choose the other side simply because it's not your side. And now they've spent hours on YouTube watching Prager University. And by the time they've emerged, right, after 2 weeks of watching 100 Prager University videos, now it's too late. Now, and I don't want to sound the alarm bell. If your child's watching Prager University, I don't necessarily mean you should give up on them. I guess the point is, as I was reading that article, Lance, it made me think of the conversation that I had with our producer the other day, because he was talking about a discussion that he had with somebody. And do you remember where I told him a little bit about whenever you can argue within somebody's existing frame of reference, your chances of having an impact with them are always greater. If you try to, if you're just going to stand on your ground and what you believe, while it may be noble, you're probably not going to move them very far. If you can meet them where they are and start the conversation there, your chances of going somewhere, and notice I say conversation instead of argument or debate, are so much better.
So that you can have honest, open, and respectful conversations. I mean, it really is, it's just that simple. I mean, we always try to come up with an answer, right?
Right.
But that really is the answer, is that you have to allow them to be exposed to the other side and then sit down and have that honest, open conversation with them about, okay, yes, there is, like we said in the first episode, there is part of this video. Yep, that's fact. What they stated there is fact. Then they talked for 2 minutes. That's not fact. But then they said this, and this is a fact. So now we have to discuss those 2 minutes between the 2 points of fact and the 5-minute video. I'll give you that the first thing they said was a fact. And I'll give you the statement they made at the 3-minute mark was a fact. Now let's discuss the jump that they made between those two facts.
The harder you push, the less ground you'll get. The article I was reading, Lance, explained it, I think, pretty well. They said the whole idea about how we engage with people when we're trying to change their mind is all based on simple, we view it as a physics problem, right? If I'm looking at a chair and I need to take it from point A to point B, I'm going to pull or push the thing from point A to point B, right? Because that's how that works. And that's so often how we approach these situations when we're talking with other people, whether that's children, right, or other adults. We're going to push them or pull them to where we want them to be. Instead, they suggest think of it a little bit more like chemistry and a catalyst, which is essentially an agent that removes barriers to change, makes it easier for them to hear what you're saying. And that's how I think you have to approach this stuff, because ultimately that's going to yield you what you want. The more you push and pull, the less you'll get what you want. And if you want your kids to consider your values, they can't cut you out of the conversation. Otherwise, you're almost guaranteeing that they will not consider your values legitimate. If they've made the decision to cut you out, you've lost, and you should still try to get back in there, but don't get to the point where you've lost in the first place. So, Lance, if people want to read the article, right, they can go to thestateofus.org.
That is correct.
As always, we've got it linked there, and it's pretty good. It's very Prager University focused. So hopefully we were able to pull back a little bit and discuss some of that. And part of the way that these conversations are effective, and I think this is the other part of the solution, right, Lance, is share this with people. We talked about the effect that PragerU has by the amplification of the number of people it can reach. The same thing's true here, folks. And if you believe that things like this are a threat, the ultra polarization, then you have a responsibility to be part of spreading the message and the idea, the philosophy of the State of Us. And how can people encourage others to tune in, Lance? Because this is a syndicated radio program and it's a podcast. And if you listen as a podcast, you can actually hear episodes sooner, right?
We come out with the podcast on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so you can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcast. And as I said, any place you can go to the State of Us and get it online.
And our website's got all the information, right? So all the different ways you can listen, you can find them there.
As well as the many books and book reviews that we have done and are going to continue to do. It's kind of a nice little side piece that we are encountering here at True Chat.
Yep. And you can engage with us there as well. Let us know your thoughts. For the State of Us on True Chat in Urbana, I'm Justin T. Weller.
And I'm Lance Jackson.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Be the change. Be sure to check out our website, thestateofus.org, for books, articles, and all the ways to tune in. thestateofus.org.